Hello, everybody. So, we're going to be talking about a pretty juicy topic today, and it is what do souls, and especially new souls, the ones that have not ever incarnated on Earth, what do they think about sex, food, and rock and roll? Maybe it'll be some of the other topics as well that you might be expecting. But basically, the Earth is really, really interesting, and there are a lot of, shall we call them bodily pleasures. It's not just bodily, but there are a lot of pleasurable things that are on this planet. And let's be honest, those pleasurable things can also cause us a lot of grief, like everything that I just mentioned, even food, right? So a lack of it, or an addiction to it, or you know what I mean? Like food, as great as it is, can also create a bit of a conundrum for us. So let's talk about what do souls think and feel and understand about these earthly pleasures slash conundrums, especially if it's a brand new soul or a soul that has never incarnated on Earth. And these, of course, are the wonderful Erin Case's questions. So, Erin, I'd like to start with what inspired you to ask these questions, because they're really, really interesting.
I'm always full of questions. One of the things just overall with souls that from reading Journey of Souls, I've always looked at things and say, where does the beginning come from with souls, and what are souls actually looking at, and how are they taking in the experience of everything of the human existence? So tying all those things together, it's amazing to me. And I've heard so many stories of Earth is the hardest place in the multiverse to live, and how do we do this? And people will ask, well, why would I choose to come here? So
Why do
for
people say that it's the hardest?
because it's the only one where we have to deal with all the things that we deal with in human existence: eating, rest, pleasures. Uh, to my understanding, those things don't exist in the same type of physical manner that it does here for us.
I think they could. I think they might.
I think I would assume aspects do,
Yeah, yeah.
but in other realms, do beings have to eat? I mean, is that a necessary thing anywhere else?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is I've facilitated so many hypnosis sessions and I've seen so many things that are off planet, other types of beings. And so, of course, there are other types of beings that do not need to eat food, do not reproduce in the way that we are used to as humans, or, just anything that we're used to on this planet. But there are beings and there are places, other planets, etc., where they are consuming things and they are reproducing. So I'm not saying that Earth isn't the hardest. I'm just saying, like, there are probably some other places out there that are equally challenging. I'm imagining as well, just based on some of the things that I and my clients have seen out there in other places, like it can get really, really dark in other places. That's not a focal point of a lot of my client sessions, since they're usually focusing on something really positive, like their life's purpose. Not that learning about darkness is negative necessarily, because it can create a lot of positivity in the way that you perceive, your situation here on Earth. But there can be a lot of challenge and darkness in other, like a lot. So
Can you clarify what you mean when you say dark?
I'm thinking slave colonies. I'm thinking slave energy. I'm thinking soul sucking. I mean, like really, really dark, harsh. Like I have heard of. Oh man, it just feels weird even talking about it. I haven't thought about this in a really long time, actually. That there are incarnations and existences that are so without hope that it's almost like, or it is like, that soul doesn't even, I don't know if I believe this, I think it's too dark, but the soul doesn't even incarnate again, because it's just so beyond hopeless that it doesn't even remember that it can. So it just stays perpetually stuck because it does not know that it even has an option to do something different. Again, not my belief system. but I know that there are beliefs out there like that. And so I would say, give me Earth any day compared to that. So
But it so is this a result of the soul's experiences, or is this just how the soul came into existence?
I think it's a result of the soul's experiences. Do you know what learned helplessness is? Are you
Yes.
familiar with that psychological term? Okay, so
Yes.
for those who are not as familiar with that, uh, there's a lot of animal cruelty in science. And so this is a good example of yet another way that we abuse animals for the sake of science. Uh, so there was a researcher, I am unfortunately forgetting his name right now,
Isn't
Seligman.
that part of Pavlov's
It was
experiments?
Seligman. It was Seligman. I'm forgetting his first name, but his last name was Seligman. I'm definitely getting that right. And so Dr. Seligman, what he did essentially is he took dogs and he put them in a cage, and there was a current of electricity that would zap and shock the dogs while they were in the cage, and they could not get out. Now, of course, in normal circumstances, if you get zapped, then you jump the fence or you walk through the door and you exit any way that you can because you don't want to keep feeling that. Those dogs could not get out of that situation. All right. So then we have those are dog A. Then we have dog B. Dog B getting zapped, but has a usual exit point. So whether it hops out of the cage or walks through the door or whatever it is, it does have the ability to remove itself from that painful situation. Now, what you then do with dog A, the one that could not get out, is you now put him in the enclosure where he does have the ability to get out. Again, whether it's hopping a fence or walking through a door, he does have the ability to leave. But because he has been zapped so many times without the ability to leave, he now does not even try. So that is learned helplessness, where he could leave, but he's so helpless slash hopeless, he doesn't even realize he has the option anymore. And then the way that they could get that dog to snap out of it and realize, like, buddy, you have hope, like you have an opportunity here to better your situation, is that they would then put dog B in the cage with dog A. And dog B is like, I've been leaving this situation the whole time. Let's get out of here. And so demonstrates, hey, like all you have to do is walk through the store or hop this fence and you can get out. And so then dog A does learn by watching dog B model the escape route. So it's a dark story and science experiment. It should shed a lot of light on the way that some people behave, because there are some people that you can see that they have the opportunity to improve their situation. You can see the way they are self-sabotaging it. You can see the way that they are not observant of opportunities around them. Like you can see it because you haven't lived that really hard life that they've lived. Like your dog B, like you've had challenging situations, but you've been able to get out of it. Their dog A, like they have had just shit after shit after shit. And they probably had a lot of shit when they were a kid. And when you have it when you're a kid, you really like it's so much harder to get out of the situation, right? So I think the light, in addition to the compassion and understanding why some people act that way, I think the light in that story is you can be their dog B. Like you can be the one that goes, hey, like, see, you're having a time over here. I've had a similar time. And guess what? This is how I got out of it. And so you can be the light and the hope and the role model that they really do need. So, dark story, light story. But going back to souls and these darker, harder, really challenging situations, if you apply learned helplessness to if a soul has gone through something that hard, that traumatic, that trapping, then you could imagine that they would just go, there's no hope. Like, I don't know anything else. I will never know anything else like this. Again, I don't know that that is my belief system because I'm just perpetually optimistic. And so I can't imagine. I can imagine it in an incarnation level. I can imagine being incarnated and feeling that way. I can't imagine a soul feeling that way because it should be still connected to the bigger picture and to source. So I'm not really convinced that a soul could suffer that, but I am for sure convinced that an incarnation could suffer that. And that would be a lot darker than what most of us experience on planet Earth. Now, there are some of us, there are people trapped right now in a basement. Let's be honest. In this second, right now, somebody, probably a lot of somebody's trapped in a basement. Um, that's planet Earth for that person. Then there's planet Earth that we're getting to experience right now, which is really, really great. So, yeah.
But couldn't that darkness be an aspect of what the soul is meant to experience,
Sure.
just as a soul entity?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that we're doing ourselves, our souls, the bigger picture a disservice if we don't look at the potential silver linings of everything, the potential lessons, um, and purposes of everything at the same time. I also wish that I could have a magic wand and go, no, let's all just learn everything and be really happy all the time. So that's probably why I'm not in charge. So, and then April, hi, April, she wrote a couple minutes ago. She said, 2 live streams ago, it seems that she went real Texas on us. Y'all, it seems that y'all channeled that Earth was medium difficulty. Thank you for bringing that up because April is very familiar with hypnosis and particularly soul empowering hypnosis, SEH. So she knows that it's really easy to get like so in the thick of the experience that you forget what you've said. So I'm glad that April, with her logical mind, being online, that she remembers what we channeled, and it makes sense that Earth is medium difficulty. And then she says, I was, so she remembers it because she was thinking, I wouldn't want to see anything worse than what we know to be possible here. Oh yeah, I can get like, again, just it's rare for my clients to have like these really like super dark sessions. But I have vicariously seen some things, and I tend to drop in with a lot of my clients, not all, but a lot of them. And so when I say it, like seeing, feeling like, yeah, it can get pretty rough
Do you
elsewhere.
have any stories
Me?
that you can share?
Okay, let me see if I can tap back into it because it's like it's here. Like I can feel it like coming in. Let me ask permission if I can talk about it because I just mean like soul level. Like I don't mean like send an email real quick. Let me just ask really quickly. Okay, it seems like we're good. Because this client's really, really private, and I actually asked, like, "Hey, can I share a recording of this? Like, I would keep your identity anonymous." And he's one of the only people, really, really nice guy, like super, super nice guy. He's one of the only people that's like, "No, let's keep this private." So that's why I wanted to check in. So what I remember happening in the session, I'm just trying to tap back into it. Yeah, I'm probably doing a little bit of disservice to the exact phrasing and terminology that he was using when he was channeling this. Oh, we're getting a little feedback. He's one of the only people that's like, no.
Sorry.
Let's keep this private. So that's why when you heard it.
Sorry. I was trying to read the comments.
Oh. Well, okay, yeah, that's so weird. Okay, I will always make sure that I'll say the comments out loud. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you couldn't see them without the weird feedback happening. Okay, so again, probably going to be doing a disservice to the terminology. But what I remember really distinctly is that planet Earth had sort of this. He did not use this description, but this is what I was visualizing as he was telling me about it. If you've seen Stranger Things, there is this very large, like black with like imagine an octopus or a spider having these appendages that are large, right? But then imagine that those appendages are something that's like vacuuming, like sucking, right? And so there was this thing that was hovering outside of Earth that had these large appendages that were then sucking the energy, like harvesting the negative energy here. And because it was harvesting and feeding off of, and then also transporting that negative energy elsewhere, to whomever was benefiting from it, there was an incentive for this planet to continue to stay really challenging and hard, because what it was absorbing and utilizing was all of that negative energy. So the worse it is for us, the better it is for them. And hold on, let me see if I can talk about the positive part. Okay. Well, I was asked to hold off on that. The positive part. Okay, I can keep it vague. It's fine for me to keep it vague. So, he did a lot of really good work in that session to neutralize, better word, eliminate that happening. And then also, this is a really nice part. I'm not sure why I can't talk about it, but also did this beautiful moving into the future, but like thousands of years. And I'm just going to say, like, it was really good. It was really, 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 really good. I don't know why I'm getting the go ahead to talk about the dark part, but not the light part. This is really bad. I just heard like spoiler alert. Okay, no light part. We all know about the dark part. The dark part's not like really a surprise to anybody at this point. But the light part is like so good, and there's a lot to look forward to. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. Like
Okay.
so good. Like it was one of my favorite sessions that I've ever observed. I really liked it a lot. And then just to keep my promise to you, Erin. So April says, Courtney, I love you, April. She says, you're dog bee in action. Thank you. I try to be. I was thinking about that myself as I was telling that story, because a lot of people will say to me, oh, Courtney, like you're so happy all the time, and you must have had like a really good childhood. And I'm like, oh, thanks. No, it was not great. So yeah, I try to be dog bee. Try to talk about how things were hard for me in the past, in no way as a pity party, but more to be inspirational and say, like, you can have like a rough start and it can end up being like pretty great. Like you can do the work and get yourself out of it, no problem, actually. So
Definitely.
yeah. And then I always wonder, Erin, if part of your curiosity about how do souls begin, because that's like an overall theme for a lot of your questions, right? That's the start. The starting point is the starting point for a lot of your
Mhm.
questions. Do you think that is front and center for you because of growing up in a religious environment, and you were that cute little kid that was like, hold up, how did all this begin? Do you think it's because religion started to was very formative for the way that you're wondering about the world, or do you think that, like, even if you've been dropped into an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that you would have been that little kid like, so where did this coconut tree actually come from?
I I honestly think it's part of my makeup. I think I would automatically just try to determine, okay, what's the starting point here for everything that is in existence, because
Mhm.
everything has a starting point somewhere, no matter what you are, except for source.
Yeah, you're the little kid that's like, "Oh, was it the chicken or was it the egg? Egg, chick, egg? No, which one was it?" Well, here's a question I have for you. I think whenever somebody has something that's just like going through them, like that same type of question over and over again, you're probably the one who's meant to receive the answer. Like, have you pondered and delved into this?
You mean as far as asking?
Mhm.
Not as much as I should have at this point, I guess.
You went to do some homework? You're like,
Yeah,
"Not really, but"
that's something I'll work on.
Yeah, yeah. When we do this again on Monday, I would really be curious for you to share, like, if you do a deep dive into it. Because one of my favorite things that I ever did was a deep dive into why I was able to see and perceive darker things in some of my sessions. And then when I don't know how legal it is to talk about having done illegal drugs. So we'll just say hypothetically, if I ever did do mushrooms, that I heard some like really dark things, And it disturbed me, where I thought, is there something, this was back in 2020. And I was thinking, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, I don't think like that anymore. I think that just because you're able to tune into dark things doesn't mean that you're dark. Because you know how with a lot of spiritual communities, they're like, you got to be careful of your frequency. And if your frequency is bad, then you pick up on the bad things and you attract the bad things. And so I was still fully bought into all of that. Um, and and so at that point, I thought, am I hearing these bad things because I'm bad? Right? Like, am I on that frequency of negative? And that's why I'm able to perceive this. And so because of that disturbing thing happening, I remember this is back in Virginia. And I remember sitting in front of my fireplace, which I'm convinced is a portal for like a bunch of good things. And so I just sat in front of that fireplace and was like, okay, like I need to understand what's happening here. Like, why am I able to hear this? Um, and then they showed me like this great information about the light and the dark. And I can tell you more about it if you want to hear it. The light and the dark, and like how they play off of each other, and what's the purpose of both, and how some people play on both sides. And it was fascinating. But that was because I just kind of sat myself down and said, like, okay, deep dive, explore, find out now. And so I think that that would be fun for you to do about these origin questions. Do you want me to tell the light and dark stuff?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay. So, um, it's kind of simple actually, which is yes, there's a light team, and yes, there's a dark team, and there are plenty of souls that play on both. Why would a soul play on both? Oh, well, let's first talk about like what's the purpose of having both, right? And it's that they're able to up each other's game. So we could look at the darkness doing something extra bad, like next level bad, and we could go, darkness, bad, stop, don't do it, right? Except anytime they up their game, all it does is it pretty much guarantees that we, the light, we up our game, because we're not going to let the dark win, right? We're just not going to do that. We're not going to stand for it. And so we have to, out of necessity, up our light game. And so it's actually a favor. Like if the dark was like, ugh, boring, we're tired of it, like we're taking our ball and going home, we're not doing this anymore, then we in the light would plateau where we are. So they're basically like the personal trainer that's like, you can do more reps. Like gets you doing more and pushing more than you would have without that personal trainer being right there, like, cheering you on, egging you on. So that's one of the reasons that the dark side is so valuable. The thing about souls, maybe there are souls that exclusively play for the dark. They're like, I'm a baddie and I know it, and that's just my role, and that's what I want to do. And there might be souls that exclusively play for the light, and they're like, I'm really gonna just this one thing. I'm gonna stick to this. And then there are souls, me included, that will do both, right? It's probably a lot of us that do both. And it doesn't mean that this soul is mixed up or confused. It means that that soul is very purposeful and really wants to, for a good reason, experience both. Here's the good reason. Because again, I was doing this deep dive in a self-guided hypnosis session where I was like, help me understand, universe. So the reason is if you are a soul that plays on both sides, what you're doing when you're from the light team and you go over to the dark team and you play on that team, what you're learning is their playbook, right? So it's like if it was a football team and you were playing, let's say the Stars, and then you go over and then you play the, I don't know, Moons, but you can see the Moons playbook. Well, you play on that team for a couple of seasons, and then you defect to your actual original home team, the Stars, and you're like, "Hey, Stars, guess what? Like, I know all their inside plays. Would you like to know them?" And then it helps your good team be even more effective, right? So that's one reason that it's helpful to play both sides. Another reason that it's helpful to play both sides is that if there is a soul that's primarily playing on the dark side, then let's say that you bond while you're teammates, and then it sees you defect over to the light side, and it was kind of on the fence about if it could. I mean, this is dog B, right? It was kind of on the fence about if it could, if it should, if it was even possible. and then it sees you defect over, then that gives that soul an opportunity to be able to do the same.
Couple questions here, just thoughts and questions. One, doesn't it make more sense that a soul would actually experience both instead of just taking
I,
the path of one?
I think so. I'm one of those people that never really wants to speak in absolutes because I just don't know. Like I can't, like I used to joke, Oprah would ask people at the end of her interviews, what is the one thing that you know for sure? And I used to joke, but I was dead serious that my answer would be the only thing I know for sure is that I don't know anything for sure. And then eventually I made that joke to somebody who watched it, and apparently Deepak Chopra, that was basically his answer also. I'm like, okay, good company. So probably souls, like all souls, play on both at times, but there's no way for me to know that for sure. So maybe there are some that peg hard to the light and peg hard to the dark. And they're like, I have no curiosity about the other side, or I have no need to experience the other side. I think that's very unlikely, but it's possible.
Okay, so could it also be possible that the when a soul is, let's say, fragmented from source,
Hmm.
that two mirror souls are created, they're fragmented in pairs, and two are created, one of the dark, one of the light, and put together, and each one would actually be, I guess, half of a soul, and you put them together and they become one complete soul,
Hmm.
which actually would go back to source. Could that possibly be what's in play here? And they're just at extreme op, they're at polar opposites as far as function.
It's possible. I'm getting strongly the image of a yin yang, though, where they're polar opposites, but at the same time, the yin yang, the beauty of it, the symmetry of it is that there's a dot of light within the dark half, and the light half, there's a dot of dark. So again, not 100% of either. I'm sure they could do 100%, but it's just so much more well rounded if you experience a bit of both.
Okay, that fits with being well rounded. And
Yeah.
now I'm just wondering, is this where the actual concept of the yin and yang symbol came from?
I
Because
don't know.
that actually would fit. I mean, it's probably
Possibly.
not, but that actually fits. That fits 100%.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know the history of it. I think that also, even if we do know the history of it, there was probably one person that channeled it, and maybe he or she wrote down exactly what they channeled to get that inspiration. But a lot of times in hypnosis sessions, what is spoken aloud, like what is made public, and I don't just mean public on something like a podcast. I mean public as in like even narrated to your hypnotherapist. What is spoken aloud is such a small fraction of what's actually happening within the person's hypnosis session that I imagine that things that are channeled throughout history, the yin yang symbol. I'm not saying that anybody ever said they channeled it, but something like that probably came from source, probably was, brought to that person or people who collectively created that. So I don't know what the origin story is. And even if we did know the origin story, do we really know the origin story?
Okay. One more question before we get into the the other things.
Sure.
Can in a session, can a person actually, and I assume it would have to be with the soul approving doing it, but could a person actually say, I want to know about the dark parts of my soul and learn all of that information,
You mean in a
or learn
hypnosis
some of
session?
that information? Yes.
Yeah, I think that what would happen in that case, and would happen with any question. So whether the person is like, I want to know about my future, or I want to know about my past lives, or I want to know about the soul connection, or I want to know about, you know what I mean? Like no matter the question and the goal, whether it's dark or light or somewhere in between, the answer is going to be the same, which is the universe will show you what you are ready for. And it might even feel like it's a little bit more than what you're ready for because the universe is has more faith in you sometimes than you have in yourself. And so sometimes people get shown something in a session, they're like, I was not looking for that, or I was not ready for that. Yeah, you were. Yeah, you were. You just barely were, barely, but you were. And so the universe will show you what you're ready for, and they're not going to push you too hard or too far or too extreme, because what would be the purpose in that? Like, they're not trying to crack anybody or break anybody. They're only trying to show you things that will help you move forward. So yeah, they'll show you, but only up until a point.
So I just have this thought process of that person who feels that they've lived a perfect existence, never done anything wrong to anyone in any existences ever. They've always been the victim, and just everything. I'm so perfect and I'm so wonderful, and I've always been the victim. And then the soul just smacking them in the face with the reality of this is what you've been in the past that you've been blocking out, or that you're just not accepting.
Yeah.
That's I would assume that will be a reason for the soul to actually bring forth all that information to give a person a dose of reality or balance.
It would be a great gift for that person too, because to go through life thinking that, woe is me, I'm a victim, I've never done anything wrong, just bad things happen to me. That's a cage. Like, that's a cage that somebody's put themselves in, because that is a form of learned helplessness, where it's so disempowering to think that you're not really in control of your own life, and that anything bad that has ever happened to you is unfair, unjust. Um, I think it's so much more empowering to, even when something is kind of unjust and kind of unfair, I think it's much more empowering to take a look at ourselves and go, all right, I didn't end up here by accident. I took some steps that like moved me in the direction of whatever this unjust, unfair situation is. Like, what role did I play? Even if it was a little bit, but what role did I play to help put myself in this situation? Like, I think that's so much more liberating, because then you can go, okay, I see where I took a wrong turn there. All right. Lesson activated, learning activated. Don't do that again. And then it helps improve your life, even if there was, a challenge as part of that. An unjust, like a legitimately unjust challenge, like it's still worthy of people's time to do some reflection on, like, did they have anything that they did that moved them in the direction of that injustice?
Okay.
And then
I
April
think
said in one of her comments, she said, guys, I almost typed the yin yang emoji several times before you all mentioned it. I typed it, then erased it. That's interesting though. Like, she's got some light and dark. She's like, do I post her or not? No, I don't think that's light or dark, but it's funny that there's that internal conflict happening. And then, and then she said, she's such a Scorpio. Anybody who didn't watch the last live, April and I are both Cancer suns and Scorpio risings. So we're like all warm and cuddly and nurturing, and then like also kind of like high energy in terms of other things. And so she says, next, let's talk sex. And then she goes, oh my God, I'm dying. And then she goes, that's why I logged on tonight. And then she says she's kidding, but she's a Scorpio. So I'm like, are you?
yes. Are you?
Yeah. Because again, the same thing, Scorpio, where Aaron gave me a list of like probably literally 80 questions. And then I saw the ones with sex in there, and I was like, let's do those. So, Aaron, what would you like to know about souls, particularly new souls that haven't incarnated on Earth? What they know about, or feel about, or understand about the bodily pleasures, including food, including, let's say, financial abundance, including being physically fit. Like, you put a lot of really interesting things on your list about breathing. Talk about, you know what? Let's take a second. April will get to sex in a minute. Let's take a second to appreciate breathing. If you think, sex could easily be included in this, I'd never thought about it before, but it totally is. If you think about all of the things that we participate in that are very, very healing: sleep, exercise, meditation and hypnosis, sex, all of these things that cause us to breathe deeper, it's so good for us and it's so enjoyable to experience, right? If we're stressed out, we get really constricted and like we're not breathing the way that we should be breathing. And then like I'll even say sometimes like if I'm getting a little too like hyper or a little too stressed, I'll just say like, okay, I need to take like 4,000 deep breaths right now because there is a medicine to it, right? So breathing is a really, really big deal. And I'm probably going to bungle this a little bit, but I'm pretty sure that if you look at the words like inspire and expire, right? So inspire, like I think that if you look at the root of that, that has a lot to do with like inhaling and breathing. And then expire has a lot to do with no longer breathing. Guys, fact check me on that. I think I heard that like 20 years ago, and I don't know if it was right to begin with, but that's what I heard. So breathing, I mean, it's life, right? Like it is life and it feels so good. And that's one of my favorite things in a hypnosis session is taking that moment to really focus on the breathing and then to remember that this is a tool that you have within you all the time. If you're having a sleepless night, just focus on the breathing. You're going to fall asleep really quickly whenever you do that. If there is something stressful happening, like a business meeting, guess what you can do that nobody knows that you're doing it? You can self soothe and collect yourself through the breathing right there in front of them. So it's something that is very pleasurable, very medicinal, has a lot of utility, and yeah, it's breathing. It's something that we never really think about. That is, you don't think about it until you can, and then guess what? It's like the only thing that you want and need in that moment.
And it's the only thing that you can't go without for any significant period of time.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, is that the thing that kills you first? I mean, maybe there. I mean, like a bullet, of course, but other than like, but is that the thing that would kill you first? It's obviously not starvation. Like shortage of oxygen would get you first, but like, yeah. I don't know. Not a doctor. My brother's a doctor. We should get him on one day. Like, what kills you first? Probably lack of breathing. Yeah, or oxygen. Um, Aaron, anything you want to say about that before we get to just April? I got it. You want to talk about sex? I got it. No, I'm just teasing her. But Aaron, anything else you want to talk about regarding breathing or any topic before we get into the sex stuff?
No, we're good.
Okay. One thing, and again, I I said it a moment ago, I'll say it again. There are exceptions to every rule. So anything that I say, no matter how firmly I say it, no matter how confidently I say it, there are exceptions to every rule. So, for example, one of Aaron's questions is casual sex part of a soul contract or is that just part of free will? And my knee-jerk reaction to that was that I don't think there's any such thing as casual sex. Like, and this isn't me growing up in the Bible Belt being all like conservative. Like, it's real, like, trying to figure out how much I should say. I'm not prudish. I've lived enough life that I feel that casual sex is a myth. Like, I don't really think that that is a thing. And I think that we are doing a disservice to the beauty of, and by the way, Aaron, this is not like at you at all, because it's a phrase that's used all the time. And I know it's a phrase that has a utility. Like, I immediately understand your intention with the question, right? Like, so you phrased it exactly right. So this is not like me at all saying like, why would you use that phrase? Not at all. I get why you use that phrase. You should have used that phrase. I'm just saying, like, in terms of it being a phrase, I don't know that that's accurate. I really think that sex is sacred. Sex is special. Sex is like, like, good God, like amazing, right? Sex is the way that we get new life. Like, it is like so amazing. And so the idea that this concept of casual sex has been introduced, and that we use it so casually, that term, I really think that there is some desensitization happening where I'm like, guys, I don't like, again, I've lived life. like, I am not prudish. I am speaking from experience here. Like, I have definitely participated in this thing that we would call casual sex. And I would say, again, I'm only one person, but I'm probably speaking for a fair amount of the population who has participated in this thing that we would call casual sex. I would say that it probably is coming from a place of being disconnected from your own emotions, like still coming from like a hurt, unhealed place. Um, and I think that once you're healed, even if you still have a really high libido, I think that like you don't participate in something like that casually any longer because you understand how special and sacred and like it's like a privilege to get to participate in that,
But
and that you wouldn't just like do it
but
so casually.
but unless I'm misunderstanding you,
Hmm.
there are individuals when using the term casual sex, and this casts no shade on no one because well,
Agreed.
we've all
Agreed.
done it.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah, I
you have
agree.
someone that looks at sex and they strictly look at sex as I'm going to go out and I'm going to have sex and I'm going to be pleasured and that's it.
Hmm.
That's isn't that falling along the line of the concept of casual sex? I want to go to the bar and meet someone. We're going to go back to my house or their house, and we're going to basically be content.
Yeah, it definitely like goes right along with the definition. I think that everybody who understands the concept of casual sex will go, yes, that is an example of it. What I am positing is I don't think that that actually exists. I think that again, there are exceptions to every rule, but I would be willing to bet that the vast majority of the time, whenever someone is participating in that, that they're probably coming from a hurt place slash a place that hurts so much they don't even feel it anymore. So it's like a numb place, but I don't want to call it a numb place because it's really a hurt place. Um, I'm just not buying it. Like as far as people being able to do that, I'm not buying it. I don't think there's anything casual about it.
So, are we speaking in terms of semantics?
Maybe.
Okay, okay, I'm with you. I, I think I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Um, but even so, in those situations, do you think that the soul, let's say you have the two individuals that hook up,
Yep.
just met and decide to hook up.
Yep.
Do you think that those souls have already communicated and say, hey, this is going to happen?
Maybe. Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It can be very purposeful. So we know with soul contracts that there could be plenty of people that again, another reason that it's not so casual is that life can be created from it. Slash the loss of life can be created from it. Like, sometimes people get pregnant and they don't keep that pregnancy. So there's nothing casual about either of those decisions for like a life to be brought into the world over like one drunken night or the ending of life because of abortion or plan B or whatever. I think there are probably a lot of options out there to take care of a situation like that, but let's call it what it is. That's still the ending of what probably would have become a life. So again, this super not casual. Like that is like I can't even imagine facing a decision like that. Um this is the antithesis of casual to me. So, but when it comes to the soul contracts, sure, like I could see very easily a soul being like, okay, so this one's gonna get real sloppy. This one's gonna be a crying mess. Okay, they're gonna like, they're gonna meet. We just need this baby who wants to be raised by a single mother or twist maybe a single father. And the baby like wants that, and the parent wants that, or let's say there's no way we're getting these two together without like forcing their hands into something that like would have been casual but now has to be really serious. Shotgun weddings, right? I could see a number of like really cool, actually positive ways that something that starts off a little like, we're not going to be talking about that at our wedding. You know what I mean? Like starts off in a kind of scandalous way. I could see it turning out really beautifully. I just think that the odds are like kind of low that that's the way that that story ends up. Um, but yeah, you could definitely have a what we would call casual sex encounter be very soul contracted for sure.
Would this isn't on the list, but would the same thing apply for poly as well?
You mean polyamory?
Yeah.
I would imagine. As far as like soul contracts?
Hmm.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I would think so. Cause that's I mean, really, really stretching yourself as far as that you would be participating in something that most people can't handle, right? I mean, I don't even know if like the majority of people in those relationships can handle them. Again, I'm sure some can. Uh, but I imagine it's challenging for people who even like at the beginning of it, they're like, "This is a great idea," and partway through, they're like, like I changed my mind. Like I'm learning about how jealous I could be, or how possessive I could be, or how you know what I mean, like how easily hurt and rejected I can be. Like I imagine some serious, serious life lessons and lessons about oneself and their shadow sides. Like that would be one of the easiest ways to draw that out of you and to get to reflect on it. Like I couldn't handle a situation like that. No way. It's like, oh my God. Like, no, no. Like I don't even need to be in that situation. I can tell that I would get like very unpleasant very quickly. So yeah.
Um, so let's just say it's in a soul contract for any of these things to happen. With those things being in a soul contract, how much does a soul actually understand of that experience to create a soul contract for something like that?
Like if they never done it before.
Right. If it's a soul that's never lived on Earth, never lived in existence where beings have an action like having sex, how
Oh,
can they
oh,
make a decision?
you don't mean polyamory anymore. You
Well,
just mean like sex in
no,
general.
well, polyamory, just committed relationships, just sex in general. How can they make a decision for a soul contract for something that they don't even understand the experience of?
Okay, so one thing that's really cool about hypnosis and exploring all the soul stuff and all the spirit realm stuff is that you get to learn some of the things that souls do in the spirit realm, including some of the souls, like your soul's favorite things that it likes to do in the spirit realm. And so, because I've gotten to explore and play in the spirit realm so much with my own sessions as well as my client sessions, one thing that you learn is that there are things like classrooms in the spirit realm. And so you can take classes if you imagine just like a little kid going to school and you're like, I'm going to learn about this today. And that you get an education. I've got a great story brewing. I'll get to it in just a second. But you get an education about whatever it is that you're supposed to be learning about that day. Now, just like us, like you could do a presentation on Ireland for someone and they could see pictures and they could hear a description and maybe you read a poem to them by one of the famous Irish poets and there's a video of what the weather's like and so you give them a good idea of what it's like but you're never going to feel it. Like okay, so one thing that was really interesting, Costa Rica feels different when you land there. Like there is something in the air about Costa Rica that feels, it's not just fresher, but it's lighter. And then you find out later on they don't even have an army. So it's not just like, oh, this has lower pollution or there's something else about it when you get off the plane that feels different. Um, so there are just some things that, like you're never going to be able to explain. The person, the soul, has to experience it for themselves. So the classrooms can do as good of a job as they possibly can, but it's still going to be totally not totally different, but it's still going to be a different, unique experience whenever they go into the classroom. And then the story that was brewing just a second ago that I want to make sure I don't forget is one of my clients. I love her so much. Her dog soul is one of her soul group members, and he's actually really, really revered in that soul group because he can bring such a different perspective, because the other soul group members have a tendency, not that you have to, but they have a tendency to incarnate as human lifetimes. And this other soul has a tendency, not that he has to, incarnate as a canine. And so when they're all powwowing about like, okay, what did you experience? What did you learn? And, they're talking about everything that they learned in their most recent incarnation or another incarnation, that this dog soul comes up and is like, hey, and they're all like, whoa, okay, this is going to be totally different. Like, what is it like to be a dog for Queen Elizabeth? What is it like to be a street dog in India? What is it like? So they really revere that teammate because he's bringing such a different perspective. So the classroom is a kind of an official formal setting. It can be, but the classroom is also just chatting with your soul group and finding out what they learned in a lifetime. So you do get a clue about what things are like, even if you haven't experienced it firsthand prior to experiencing it firsthand.
So the bottom line is they learn about it in the classroom environment, but the human existence comes to actually experience it and know what the experience is like.
Yeah, and again, it could be a human experience. It could be a rock experience. It could be a dog experience. It could be a flower experience. It could be a breeze on a Hawaiian sunrise. Like you know what I mean? Like you could incarnate to experience anything. So, but yeah, so you probably have a heads up about what it will probably be like, but you still want to experience it firsthand because there's nothing like experiencing it for yourself. Like there were other people who got off that plane in Costa Rica and probably won't describe it the way that I just did.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't never thought of it in that capacity.
Yeah. And then I'm going to just check in on a couple more comments. Oh, April is she's active today. So then she says, something that's more beneficial for me than wondering what part I may have played in getting myself, into an unfair situation is rather concentrating on what I can, on what choices I have going forward. Oh, because the guilt would be another sand trap for her. So we established in the last live that April experiences emotions differently than I do. Like, which is funny because she's Cancer Sun, Scorpio rising, same as me, but we seem to experience emotions really differently. Where I'm like, oh, it'll be fine, and she's like, I'm kind of feeling the pain of this right now, and I'm like, oh, it'll be fine. So she's saying like she would rather look at the good choices that she can make going forward, as opposed to wondering what maybe she did that she wouldn't want to repeat from the past. So that's a really, really good point. I love her so much, and. This is so funny. Then this is so funny. Erin, I wish you could see this. She just wrote Courtney plus polyamory equals shit show. It would be so bad. It would be so bad. Like I know that about myself where I'm like, no. Like I've never casually dated. Like if I like, it's so rare for me to like anybody that the person that I'm dating now, like our first date later into the evening of the day, I just looked at him. I was like, just so you know, and he's like this very, very good looking, like he's the hot bartender at the nice restaurant, like 5 minutes down the road from where I live. And so I'm like, okay, hot, like super hot bartender. Like, there's no way this guy isn't like dating around. Like, there's no way. I'm not an idiot. And so I just said to him, I was like, hey, just so you know, like, I don't share. So if you want to see me again, like, whatever entanglements you might have going on right now, end them. Like, I said that to him straight faced first evening. And then I thought, like, and then the next morning I woke up and I was like, oh shit. Like, that was really assertive. But I also meant it. Like, I don't have any regrets about saying it, but I'm just kind of like, ugh, Courtney, you're kind of bold. It's true. And I was thinking, like, is he even gonna like register, like remember it, like do anything about it? You know what I mean? And I didn't say anything. And then a few hours later, he wrote to me and he goes, I've ended all other relationships. I was like, Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, uh, stand up for yourself straight away. Like, we're gonna go off
Definitely.
on a little bit of a tangent for a second, but people will always say to me, they're like, "Courtney, like, you move so fast. Like, Courtney, you're so assertive. Courtney, you're so, like, extra." And they're like, "Aren't you concerned that that is off-putting? Aren't you concerned that that alienates people? Aren't you concerned?" Like, no, I'm not concerned about it at all, because I feel like there are no secrets when it comes to who I am. And if somebody doesn't like it in the first 5 minutes, well, thank God we all know that, because I would rather be myself, like my big extra personality, and alienate somebody in the first 5 minutes than not really be who I am. And then that does me a disservice. That does them a disservice, because they're not really getting to know who I am. And then when do I reveal who I am? A week later, a month later, a year later? Like, when am I allowed to actually be myself? And like, how long have I kept this person in the dark about what my personality is like? And so, yeah, I love like just being like really who I am, very assertive. If they don't like it, and here's the fun thing, they like it, guys. Like, they like people who are honest and who are bold and assertive and just like say whatever they need. And it's also, let's remember, whenever we allow ourselves to be honest, we then liberate the other person, and we allow them to go like, hold up, am I like in an honest conversation now? Like, I can also be yes, you can also be yourself. Like, I'd rather know if I like you or not straight away. So those who are feeling a bit more shy and bashful and reserved, you can do that if you want to, but maybe be bold and let people know who you really are. And if that's off-putting to them, thank goodness that you know that early on, even with friendships. Like, I'll have people tease me about like how strong I'll come on in a friendship. Like, I'll have a neighbor and I'm like, we should go on a hike. And then the person's like, man, like, pump the brakes. I'm like, why? Like, I want to go on the hike. And if she doesn't want to go on the hike, fine. Like, I don't
Just say
care.
no.
Yeah. Like, I don't mind being rejected at all. Like, whatever. Like, I want to go on a hike. So yeah, just be yourself.
And the thing is, people need to learn when it comes to relationships, dating, and all those things. You do have to speak up. You have to ask the unasked questions, and you just have to be honest with yourself. Because there's too often that I've heard someone be in a relationship with someone that's married, and yes, it's
Yeah.
not a proper thing to do.
Yeah.
But from the married person's perspective, you never asked. So because you never asked, I never volunteered the information.
Yeah.
So it's you have to ask the questions. You have to be straightforward. And the other thing is, it is so much nicer if you have two people who are actually open. And there's a comedian that basically said you never know somebody until a year in, because every day from the very beginning, you're basically working with each other's agent in order to find the middle ground for who you want to be. After 6 months, the agent starts to step back some. After about a year, the agent steps back a little bit more. And after 2 years, the agent's like, all right, I'm out. You guys are on your own.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that is accurate for most people and most relationships. And I'm saying, like, guys, like, let's be trendsetters and just be honest from the very beginning. Because again, like, at what point do you give yourself permission to finally be your true self? And then fairly, the other person is going to feel tricked, right? Because like they thought that they were dating the real you. And so, yeah, I say like we should all just be really honest from the very beginning. And then I would say a big thing that we need to be more mindful of is fearing rejection, because I think that's what the entire thing is about
Mhm.
when we're not acting like our true selves, is that we don't want to be rejected. It's really good to be rejected by a person who's not right for you. Like, that's actually a really good thing, because would you rather find out that they're not right for you a few days in, or would you rather find out a few years or a few kids later? Like, when do you want to find out that they're not right for you? And by the way, again, Aaron said this earlier, and I want to second it. no judgment. Well, there's always judgment. There is always judgment. Like we're constantly judging things. So that's erroneous to say that. We have a lot of compassion and a lot of understanding and a lot of empathy. Like we have all been there. So we're not trying to make anybody feel bad. There's no use in that. It's just that I don't know about you, Aaron, but I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm like, if you guys want to learn from my mistakes, like
We all
let's
make
just talk
mistakes.
openly about it. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it's unrealistic to try to act like you don't make any mistakes in relationships.
Hmm.
If you're human, you've made mistakes
Yeah.
across the board in relationships and choices just overall, and that's part of being human.
Yeah.
And you can't be afraid of making the mistakes. You just have to make your mistakes. When you make the mistakes, you learn from them,
Yeah. It's
and
really
hopefully
funny.
not do them again.
Yeah, right. And then what's funny too is anybody who's wise and smart enough about the human experience, like it's funny because I'll have a relationship and this could be romantic or it could be family or it could be friends or it could be business. Like we're talking all versions of relationships, right? We're learning from these things constantly. Um, and so it's funny whenever like I've had something go awry in a relationship, and I'm like, oh, good, I learned that lesson. I won't do that again. And so for the longest time, I was like, and the next, yeah, again, it could be business, it could be friend, it could be whatever. And I'm like, oh, good, like the next one's going to be perfect because I learned all these lessons. And then the next one, I'm like, oh shit, there were more lessons. and so now, like whenever I have a big lesson I learn, I'm like, yay, and I'm like, oh, it'll be so easy the next time. I'm like, oh wait. I wonder what lesson will present itself. And I think that the main thing is that we just have to keep working on ourselves, and because the lessons are coming, like they're coming. And so if we approach it from the perspective of, okay, just like keep your cool, stay grounded, stay stable, like see the lesson coming like the first time that is presented to you, as opposed to, I think that's like the big deal when it comes to these relationships. Um, like for me, historically, like the person, again, could be business, could be um, romantic, could be any number of things. For me, my problem pattern is that I will see the bad thing very early on and I will explain it away because I always want to see the positives, right? Like I'm always optimistic and and like there's so many ways to explain away something that you saw or felt or sent, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we're all very intuitive, right? So really quickly you can get a spidey sense or they say something, right? And like it's just that one little word in that one little sentence and it's like and and so my issue for a long time was just like explaining it away, giving them excuses, like, and then eventually you just realize, oh, if I had just paid attention and like really listened to my intuition that first time, I still could have learned the lesson and it could have saved like 9 months, or if it's a business deal, like thousands of dollars, or you know what I mean? Like, oh, like I could have just felt it and sensed it immediately and learned. So that's what I get to work on.
And it's a common mistake that people don't listen to the intuition right away, and they'll go forward and just denial, explaining it away, like you say, and
Mhm.
in the end, still come back and say, "I knew I shouldn't have did that."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, no faster. Do something about it faster. So, and then Aaron, as I promised, I'll tell you about the comments. God, April, I love you so much. So April says, I want to come back as one of Courtney's cats. You can come back as any of my animals, whether it's a dog, a cat, a ferret. You're going to be treated very well. You might get a little pudgy. I like to give treats. So fair warning, you're going to have to like exercise a lot to burn it off. And then
Is
Chrissy,
that because she wants to watch everything that's going on?
oh, I think she just knows that I treat animals really well. So it'll be a pampered lifestyle. So and then Chrissy, she says, thank you about Costa Rica. I'm about to travel through Central and South America. Chrissy, good for you. What an adventure. And then she says, and part of our reason is to feel the difference. I'm getting goosebumps right now. Yeah, to feel the difference with the vibrations of different cultures. Yeah. Yeah, Chrissy, you're going to have a good time, especially if you're into, topics such as this that we're talking about today. Like, you're clearly a feeler and a reflector, and I imagine you're going to allow yourself like that quiet space to like really soak it in. And God, you're going to really, really enjoy the nature. So even like being with the plants that are down there, Chrissy, report back. Like, you're going to have a good time. Like, that's going to be really, really delightful. Yum. Okay. And then April says, "Thanks, Chrissy, for posting a real comment as opposed to my nonsense." April, your comments are real. You're hilarious. And then Taurus Moon. April says, "Taurus Moon, she loves treats." Yeah, Tauruses, they like to be pampered. Okay, Aaron. So what else do we need to talk about? And April, keep us posted. Like, is there anything else that we should be talking about regarding sex? I do want to make sure that I say, just based on like all the hypnosis sessions that I've facilitated, I've gotten to witness that there is a very common theme that comes up, which is, even though I do not think that Earth is the only place where one can have sex, or the only place where one can have like a fine dining experience, or where one can go on a nature walk. Like, you can do that in other places as well. What the clients report over and over and over again is that this is one of the best places to get to enjoy that, like being a human and getting to enjoy these things. Like, if you think about, and you know what, I'm sure there's some dogs and cats that are like, I object. I love eating my, kibble or whatever. Like, why do you think I'm trying so hard to get to it every time? So maybe the dogs, they love their same kibble every single day for like 15 years. Maybe they love it. But I personally like that we get to experience such a deep variety of types of foods and types of experiences. And I imagine that if you go into a domesticated animal lifetime, then maybe you really like, or you want to experience repetition and consistency and having things delivered to you on a silver platter. And but yeah, it's really, really nice to be on Earth as a human in particular, because we have such agency and autonomy. And if we want to have like 10 million types of different foods and meals, and just think about eggs, like all the ways that you can cook an egg, like just one food you can cook like 12 different ways. Like, that's amazing. So yeah, it's a really fun planet. Also, if I would say, whoever thinks that this is a really hard planet, which I get, I totally get, I'm going to suggest that you go see some national parks, particularly national parks that are west of the Mississippi. If you can do that, I think you'll feel differently about the planet. Like, the United States does some things really, really good, and national parks is one of them. They are, again, west of the Mississippi in particular. Get there. You will really have a deeper appreciation for this planet. It's just unbelievably beautiful.
Um, I I thought of another question, and there's something I just want to throw out there before we wrap up here, because I know we're running short on time.
Oh my gosh,
For
did we already go over? I've been so captivated by this conversation. I haven't looked at the time once. Thank you for looking at it. I would have gone on for another hour. I've been like,
it's
oh shit.
the time is showing for me for some reason today.
Because I didn't even look. So yeah, thank you.
Uh,
Okay.
for the experiences, for example, sex.
Mhm.
When the soul has a soul contract to come and have these experiences, does are those experiences looked at for to be done as humans, to come and do that experience as an animal, or as different types of animals, as um, pollen and plants? Will the soul look at doing multiple experiences of the same thing?
That is such a great question, and thank you for bringing plants into it because we have no clue like what they're experiencing and what they're feeling, and who knows, like whenever a little pollinator, a little bee like
Yeah,
gets
that
in
power is probably just like,
there,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
like
yes.
thanks. so yeah, I imagine so I don't even remember the crux of your question. I think it would because I got so distracted by the pollen thing because I think it's such a great take. Was the crux of the question that souls that they want to experience, let's say just the way that things can reproduce. So
Yeah,
sometimes it's
so
said,
the same thing from multiple eyes,
yeah,
from multiple experiences from
yeah,
different beings on Earth.
I would say that probably we want to experience everything. And because everything is so infinite, we have the ability to do that. Particularly, there are souls that have multiple incarnations at once. I call it concurrent lifetimes. Other people call it different things. But especially if you're doing concurrent lifetimes, then, and if you think about parallel lifetimes, and like there's so many different ways to be able to experience a lot all at once. Yeah, I would say for sure that there are souls that want to experience a variety of ways of creating new life. And one thing that we haven't talked about, but I believe we referred to this in one of the other lives, is that whenever I'm working with my hypnosis clients, one of the questions that we like to ask is, what type of soul are you? Now, of course, like there are going to be options like angel realm or dragon realm or fairy realm. Yes, that can be a version of the answer, but another version of the answer could be, I'm an architect soul. I am a caregiver soul. I am an adventurer soul. There are also creator souls. So you can imagine that if you got a soul that its expertise is creation, that of course it would want to get that firsthand experience of what is it like to be a tiny, tiny, tiny baby hummingbird in an egg and then experience like becoming a hummingbird, right? Um, and then how vastly different that would feel compared to being a blue whale born into the ocean. Like totally different versions of the birthing experience. Um, and then being the parent, not just the baby, but also the parent on that side. Like what's the reproduction, like the creation process for those different types of incarnations. So I would say that, yeah, especially if you're a creator soul, that you would really be drawn to experiencing a wide variety of those types of incarnations.
And I'm actually, as you're talking about that, I'm getting that there is frequently some levels of concurrence as far as those experiences are concerned. Never thought about that, and I
Yeah,
wasn't looking for an answer like that either.
right. And then before we hop off, April wrote a couple of other really nice things. So I was just talking about the different types of souls. And one thing that we just barely like toe dipped into last time that we should definitely talk about more next time when April is on. Um, we toe dipped into that her husband, his soul has the ability to negotiate soul contracts, right? And so she mentioned, or a soul contract soul. So they're just like on planet Earth, there are a wide variety of jobs that we can experience. And there are a wide variety of jobs that people are really, really good at. And so, same thing when it comes to souls in the spirit realm. And then April says, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So I was talking about national parks, and she mentioned, yes. Oh, she was just in Hot Springs, actually. So it's another beautiful national park in Arkansas. And then she mentioned even state parks. Yes, absolutely. Like one of my favorite places on planet Earth. It's pretty close to where I live. I'm in North Bend, Washington, and just like a 25-minute drive. If you get to the back end of it, it's even closer if you're just like going into the first portions of it. There is a place called Middle Fork, and I don't remember exactly what the state park is. I think it's like Snoqualmie Forest or something like that. Absolutely one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and it's not a national park because I guess Washington got dibs on it first. And so, yeah, so federally, like, I don't think that they can take a state park and then like just demand that it becomes a national park. I think sometimes they do upgrade parks. But yeah, some of the state parks are just unbelievably beautiful. Um, April says she has a passport. That's awesome for the parks. And then yeah, and so she said the passport can be the motivation to experience even more parks. And she said that she visited hot springs this weekend, and it's glorious. That's a good word for it. It is glorious. Yeah, so whatever motivates people to get outside, and that goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, breathing. Like breathing definitely feels different when you are surrounded by moving air. You're surrounded by these plants, these trees, moving water. Like breathing definitely, and you're moving your body, right? Like you're probably not just standing there staring at something, maybe at the Grand Canyon, but in general, like you're probably moving whenever you're going to these national parks. And so it gives you a more like felt experience whenever you're there, which is really, really nice. But yeah, guys, get to national parks if you can. And I've been to actually every national park. And what's funny is that people who are familiar with them, they go, "Have you been here?" Because they think like, "Oh, certainly Tortugas." Yes, I have been. Have you been to U.S. Virgin Islands? Yes, I have been. I have been to every national park. They're the best. They're just so good. So, Aaron, anything else before we log off? Oh, tell the good people how to work with you. We really we just gabbed about hypnosis stuff and soul stuff. Guys, Aaron is an extremely gifted medium, and Claire, all things Claire, clairvoyant, clairsentient, Claire. You can book sessions with him so if you want to experience something firsthand for yourself and have a hypnosis session, I'm your girl. If let's say that you want a second opinion, go have a session with Aaron, because he's able to connect into your guides, your ancestors, and so on and so forth. So either maybe you're like, I don't know, Courtney, I don't think I want to have a firsthand experience. I would rather have somebody channel it for me, because maybe I don't want to I'm trying to think of influence. Like if a person's concerned that they might influence their own results, you can go to an objective party, Aaron, who can do a reading for you. It's really, really nice. It complements hypnosis very well. So, Aaron, I just pitched for you, but
I appreciate the pitch, and I would also add in with that pitch, if you want to be able to learn how to better use your own gifts and connect with your guides better in that process, that's part of what I do.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing that I think a lot of people don't realize how much of a difference it actually makes in your day to day, just working, living, connecting with people, because your intuition's always on. The question mark is, are you listening? Are you catching what your intuition is giving you by the manner that it's being brought to you? And so many people don't. So my goal is to teach as many people to be able to do that as possible. And the gifts and guide sessions will do that.
This is a really good segue, and we'll talk in just a second about how people can book sessions with us. But it's such a good segue into what I was thinking about would be a good topic for next Monday's live. We already know, man, we didn't really talk about it, but we already know what probably will be the mid-March live. We can get to that in a second, but I want to make sure that we talk about this idea that I've had brewing, because my email out to my email list, and then of course the title of the topic of today's live is me jokingly saying sex, food, and rock and roll, which is funny because everybody would think it would say sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I'm wondering, Aaron, do you want to talk about, but I don't know if you have any experience regarding this, do you want to talk about next week and next Monday's live, how drugs compare to channeling for your experience, hypnosis for my experience? Have you done drugs?
I have.
None of them?
I have not done. Yes, I have.
Oh, and everybody, this is all hypothetical in case, I don't know, what's the group that does drug busts? DEA or something like that, in case the DEA is listening.
DEA is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all hypothetical.
Have you hypothetically done any drugs?
Yes.
Hypothetically.
Yes, hypothetically.
Yeah, I've done like quite a few actually as a big hypnosis nerd because I'm like, well, I want to have an informed experience about what this is like compared to hypnosis and what this is like compared to hypnosis. I'm super biased.
And
But spoiler alert, like hypnosis is, I think, the best way to experience things. I get that it's not the only way, and I get that for some people they need something outside of themselves. But I'm thinking, Aaron, do you want to talk about how drugs compare to hypnosis slash mediumship channeling next week?
yep, we can talk about that. My experience is not huge, and plant medicine is something that hypothetically I would like to experience as far as my journey, because I there's a lot of things in the under the umbrella of plant medicine that I would love to do,
Mm.
and there's only one plant medicine that I've hypothetically done, and
Which one?
that's the most marijuana. That's the
Oh,
that's the most common of them,
yeah,
and um, but there's so many others that I would like to do and like to experience at some point, and I'm definitely going to. It's just going to be a matter of when
yeah,
and where,
yeah.
hypothetically.
Hypothetically. Yeah, spoiler alert, like I definitely am going to be super biased when I talk about this. I'm aware of that about myself. And we've talked about soul contracts and what we want to experience. I imagine that probably I'm supposed to experience hypnosis really differently than these other substances. But for me, having so many hypnosis sessions leading up to even trying these things. Like a lot of people will see how I process these plant medicines and they're like, I've not seen anybody process these plant medicines the way that you are. And I'm like, well, it's because I've done a shit ton of hypnosis. And so like I'm starting from a, a pretty healed place. So I think that the hypnosis has given me a really different plant medicine experience because I've had so much healing that I've gone through prior to experiencing it. And I'm also going to end up being very pro hypnosis because hypnosis is something that you have access to any time. So I'm all about empowering others, right? And so even though I obviously am pro trying these things as long as you don't have any pre-existing conditions that would make it likely that you would be harmed by them. So I'm obviously pro trying it, but there's something that's just so empowering about knowing that you very Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, like you've always had the power within you. Like you've always had it. And so I get a little nervous about people feeling like they need this thing outside of them, right? Like they need the, and try it, sure. Enjoy it, sure. Benefit from it, sure. But don't ever feel like you need this thing outside of you. Like hypnosis, you've always had the ability to do that. And so I'm going to be coming from that stance as well, hypothetically. Okay, all right. So we have our topic for the next live, which is pretty cool. And then yeah, so I don't know. I'm trying to piece all this together, but I think it's going to happen. Um, I think that I haven't asked her because I just had this idea like 2 minutes before we logged onto this live. I think that we're not going to have our live on March 10th. I think we're going to move it 3 days to March 13th because there is an eclipse that's happening that day that is supposed to be the culmination of what started on. So this is March 13th, 2025. It's supposed to be the culmination of something that started for us on September 2nd of 2024. Now, what I like, whenever somebody says that, what I like to do is I like to go back into my photos because I end up hiking so much and like taking pictures of food and things like that. I have a pretty good journal of what I was doing on any given day if I go into my photos on my phone. So I went back to September 2nd. I was like, what was I doing? Like, what did I start that's about to culminate in a few weeks? And what I saw within my pictures, a really beautiful hike. I remember exactly how I was feeling, what I was thinking. Like it was a very memorable day. But then what also happened is two spirit animals come in that day. One of them is an elephant. I took a screenshot where something referenced an elephant. go a few hours later into the same day, and what I'm taking is a picture at the end of that hike of an owl. Now, my hypnosis student, who I love and cherish, she's so amazing. She and I did a session swap a few days ago, and it was about spirit animals. And what animal did I get in that session? And and we were asking for spirit animal proof. Like we were like, give us a sign that comes into real life as evidence of proof of what we're being told in this session, right? I got an elephant. She got an owl. So super weird that there were only 2 animals mentioned when I went back to my pictures from September 2nd. And so I'm going to ask her, like, hey, do you want to be a guest on the live on March 13th? She's a very busy lady. She's got a very established practice where she helps people. And so I don't know if she'll be available that day, but I'm going to ask. So, Aaron, and everybody listening, look up what you were doing on September 2nd of 2024, and we'll see what we unearth for all of us.
I'll have to look back.
Right? Yeah. And hopefully we left enough breadcrumbs. So for me, it's going to be my photos, right? For other people, it might be their emails or their text. That's another good way to go back through and see, like, what was the mindset, what had just happened and transpired that day. And that would be a good way to go back to, like, okay, what was happening at that time.
Just quickly, is there a connection with the solar eclipse as well, or just the lunar eclipse? Which you're speaking of?
That one, the September 2nd is connected to the March 13th. I believe that one's the lunar eclipse. I think the solar eclipse is the one that's March 29th.
Yes.
Yeah. Good things are happening on the 29th too. But as far as that September 2nd culminating on March 13th, 14th, that's the other thing. It could be a little squishy. Like that March 10th that we're rescheduling into the 13th. If Aaron and the student are not able to do the 13th, but they are able to do the 14th, what's interesting is that lunar eclipse, it covers both dates. So we'll have the 13th as the primary option, and then we'll do the 14th as the backup if we need to.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
That'll be interesting.
Aaron, so I promised the good people that we would say our websites, so feel free to let them know how to connect with you, and then I will do the same, and then we'll log off.
You can reach me on IG. It's peace, 4 healers. And you can email me at peace, 4 healers @gmail.com.
Perfect. And if you would like to have a Soul Empowering Hypnosis, SEH hypnosis session with me, you can go to CourtneyStarkey.com. If you want to take it to a whole other level and you want to get Soul Empowering Hypnosis certified, so become an SEH certified practitioner and take the training with me, then you can also do that at CourtneyStarkey.com. And if you're like, I just want to be pampered, because April knows I'm a very pampering personality. I just want to be pampered and I just want to experience hypnosis on a regular basis. What you can do is go to CourtneyStarkey.com, and I have an SEH group hypnosis membership that you can join so that you can experience group hypnosis once a month, every month, and just really just take good care of yourself for at least a couple of hours that month. And that's a way that you can guarantee some really good self-care for a couple of hours each month. All right, Aaron, this is super fun.
Yes,
And
it is.
we're very lucky because we get to do it again next week.
I can't wait.
All right, everybody, thank you. And Chrissy and April, thank you so much for your comments. And then Valerie, she commented last week, and she and I had a great catch-up call based on the comments. So I love the interaction. It makes me very, very happy that the people are engaging. So it makes it even more fun for sure. All right, everybody, I'm going to turn off the live stream, and we'll see you guys in a week. Bye.